Why was she even here? That question ran through Maya's head as the desert heat shimmered around her, bending the Nevada horizon like a mirage. She should have been home in bed, recovering from a late-night shift at Rusty's bar. Instead, her boots dug into the dirt of the Hawthorne Army Depot range, her rifle resting across her knees, her head throbbing from too much caffeine and too little sleep. But this was her place, her escape, the one place where the noise of her life, the bills, the bar fights, the endless grind of waiting tables and pouring drinks for strangers, faded into silence the moment she looked down a scope. Her unit called her crazy, a weekend warrior with too much to prove. Maybe they were right. Maybe showing up after a closing shift at 3 a.m. just to compete at dawn against cocky Marines was insane. But for Maya, this wasn't play acting. This was survival. Shooting wasn't just a skill. It was something closer to faith. Staff Sergeant Tommy jogged toward her, his gear clanking, sweat already streaking his shirt. His grin was easy, but his voice carried that edge, the kind soldiers get when they've been challenged. You see those jarheads on lane 12. They're running their mouths. Something about how reserve units should stick to flipping burgers and mowing lawns. Maya didn't look up. She just worked the bolt of her custom-built Remington 700, the rifle gleaming in the morning sun. She built it piece by piece over years, every tip from late nights at the bar invested in steel and glass instead of luxuries, a weapon born from stubbornness, from grit. "Let me guess," she muttered, cleaning the bolt face with a rag. "They want to make it interesting." Tommy grinned. "I told them they were about to get schooled by a bartender from Reno." Maya allowed herself the faintest smile, but inside something coiled tight. Marines. With their perfect uniforms, government-issued weapons worth more than her car, and that look, like the world owed them deference. She, grown up in a trailer park, learned physics by flashlight when the power got cut, and dropped out of engineering school to take care of her family. Those Marines had no idea what struggle tasted like. On lane 12, the loudest of them, a corporal built like a tree trunk, was lecturing a crowd about long-range precision shooting. His tone dripped with smug authority. "See, the thing about extreme distance," he said, "is it takes years of training. Wind speed, humidity, barometric pressure effect. You don't learn that shooting beer cans behind a trailer park." Maya's jaw tightened. The words cut deeper than he knew. Trailer park, weekend warrior, pretend soldier. "Actually," she said, standing, slinging her rifle over her shoulder, "the effect only matters at really extreme ranges. Most engagements never even get close to that." The corporal turned, smirk curling across his face. "And you'd know this how, sweetheart?" The word landed like an insult. Sweetheart. Like she was decoration, not competition. Like physics was too heavy for her hands. "Because," Maya said, steady, measured, "I've been shooting since I was 8, and I understand physics better than most people understand their coffee order." The Marines laughed. Tommy clenched his fists. The corporal, sensing the crowd, pressed harder. "Trailer park, huh? Fine, let's make this fun. See that target way out there?" Maya shaded her eyes. A speck, barely visible against the rising heat. "That's 3,500 meters, 3,532 to be exact. Nobody touches that shot without a team of spotters, perfect conditions, and a little bit of divine intervention. You think your physics makes you special? Show us." Her stomach dropped. The current world record for a confirmed sniper kill hovered around 3,540 meters, made by an elite special forces sniper with support teams, calculations, and perfect weather. What the corporal was suggesting was impossible. But something in her wouldn't let go. That stubborn voice, the one that had carried her through every slammed door and every insult whispered, "Prove them wrong." "What's the bet?" Maya asked. Gasps, murmurs. Tommy's eyes widened in alarm. "If you can get within 50 meters of that target," the corporal said, his grin spreading, "we'll pay your whole unit $100 each, and we'll apologize, publicly. But when you miss by a mile, you buy us around and admit reserves are just weekend warriors. Tommy hissed in her ear. Maya, that's suicide. That's not even a real shot. But she was already calculating. Wind, temperature, elevation, the rise and fall of air density as the Nevada sun climbed. Her mind built equations faster than her heart could argue. Deal. The range went silent. Even the cocky Marines blinked. The range master appeared, skeptical but curious. Soldiers abandoned their own practice to gather around. Maya slid into position, her rifle steady on its bipod cheek pressed against the stock. Tommy lay beside her with a spotting scope, muttering, "This is insane." "Wind steady at 12 southwest," Maya murmured. "Target's elevated 200 feet. Bullet drop going to be hell. Maybe a centimeter correction." Her breathing slowed. The world shrank to crosshairs and physics. She closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing the bullet's journey. 4 seconds in the air. Gravity, rotation, drift. A calculus problem suspended in desert silence. She opened her eyes, found her natural respiratory pause, squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the desert. The bullet seemed to vanish into the shimmer of heat, as if the air had swallowed it whole. 4 seconds felt like 4 hours. Then impact. Tommy's voice exploded beside her. "Holy, holy, you hit it, dead center." The range erupted. Marines ran to their scopes. The radio crackled with confirmation. Target center mass, 3532 meters, confirmed hit. The corporal's face went pale. His mouth worked but no sound came out. Maya stood slowly, ejecting the brass and catching it midair. Her voice was flat. "Without a penis." The crowd roared. Tommy laughed so hard he nearly fell over, but Maya felt strangely detached, like the triumph belonged to someone else, like the cheers were happening behind glass. Because deep down, she knew this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of something she hadn't asked for, something she might not escape. 3 nights later, long after the story had spread across barracks and bases, Maya was back at Rusty's bar, wiping down glasses, listening to truckers argue about football, pretending her life was the same. But a man sat alone in the corner booth, watching, too still, too alert, his whiskey glass barely touched. At closing, when Maya locked the front door and turned to count the register, a voice cut through the silence. "Forgot to lock the back, Maya." Her hand moved toward the bat under the bar, but when she turned, she saw him, and the 2 others flanking him. A woman with steel-gray hair, a younger man with his hand resting on something hidden beneath his jacket. "Who's asking?" Her voice was steady, though her pulse thundered. The man stepped forward. His face was, his eyes hard. "General Kane, United States Army, we need to talk." Maya's stomach dropped. "Talk about what?" Kane placed a tablet on the bar, pressed play. The satellite footage zoomed in on the Hawthorne range, on her, on the impossible shot. "You broke a world record with a civilian rifle. Our analysts say it was impossible, but you did it, and now you've been activated." Maya stared. Her hands went cold. "I'm reserve. I 10 bar, you can't just—" "You've been mobilized under emergency authority," Kane said, voice like stone. "There's someone out there, calls himself the Ghost, a sniper making kills beyond 3,000 meters, NATO general, French intelligence officer, Israeli operative, perfect shots, untraceable, and we believe you're the only one alive who can match him." The gray-haired woman spoke, her tone clinical. "If he isn't stopped, the next target is the Alpine Peace Summit, 12 world leaders, including the president." Maya's world tilted. Rusty's neon signs glowed against the face of the general, against the tablet showing bodies felled by bullets she could almost feel in her own chest. "And if I refuse," she whispered. Kane didn't blink. "Then you'll come in handcuffs, because the world doesn't have the luxury of your refusal." Maya thought of her grandfather's words. Sometimes, the world asks more of us than we think we can give. And in that moment she understood. Her life as she knew it was over. The general slid a duffel bag across the bar. "Pack light, we leave in 20 minutes. What kind of building had no name? That's the question circling in Maya's head as the SUV rolled through the gates of what looked like an abandoned industrial park somewhere in rural Virginia. She hadn't slept during the drive. Her nerves wouldn't let her. Her thoughts bounced between disbelief and dread, like a pendulum that refused to stop swinging. Maybe it was all an elaborate joke. Maybe the general and his two shadows were actors hired to scare her. But then she remembered his eyes, the kind that had seen war and worse. That wasn't acting. "Welcome to Site 7, Kane said as the vehicle stopped in front of a concrete block with no windows. "Officially, this place doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's where we train people to do impossible things." Impossible things. Like a bartender from Reno making a shot that rewrote history. The building swallowed them whole, metal doors sliding shut behind. Inside, the air smelled sterile. Bright lights gleamed off steel. Screens along the walls flickered with satellite feeds of places Maya couldn't name. Soldiers moved with quiet purpose. No laughter, no small talk. Maya followed, clutching the strap of the duffel Kane had forced into her hands. She felt like an imposter, like someone had pulled her onto the wrong movie set. Kane gestured, "Meet your new best friend." A tall man with glasses too big for his narrow face approached, carrying a case that looked heavy enough to house a coffin. His handshake was firm, calloused, surprising for someone who looked more like a professor than a soldier. "Dr. James Park," he said, voice quick, restless. "Ballistics, physics, numbers, been replaying your shot at Hawthorne for 3 days now. Still can't figure it out." Maya tried to shrug, but her voice betrayed her nerves. "Lucky, I guess." He snapped the case open. Inside, nestled in foam, was a rifle that looked like it belonged in the future. Sleek lines, custom build, an aura of precision. "This is the XM2010, modified with next-generation ballistic computing. She's yours." Park's eyes lit with obsession. "If you can make 3532 with a bolt-action hunting build, I can only imagine what you'll do with this." The gray-haired Colonel, Mitchell, appeared with a thick folder under her arm. She didn't bother with introductions. Her voice was cold, precise. "Time to see what you're up against." The briefing room felt colder than the rest of the facility. Screens lined one wall, maps dotted with red markers, photos projected in high definition. Mitchell pointed to a face. Victor, age 34, former Russian Olympic biathlete. Officially, he died in 2019. Unofficially, he was recruited by a private military contractor. Resurfaced 2 years ago under a new name, the Ghost. Maya studied the photo. A lean man, pale eyes, a smile that didn't quite reach them. He didn't look like a monster, he looked ordinary. Mitchell clicked. The screen shifted to images of bodies, crime scene reports, impact analyses. Berlin, March, German Defense Minister. Distance, 2,847 meters. Paris, April, French Intelligence Chief. Distance, 3,100 meters. May, Israeli Operative. 3,200 meters. Each shot flawless. Each one considered impossible. Maya swallowed. The numbers sounded unreal, beyond even her Nevada miracle. "How do you know it's the same person?" she asked, her voice smaller than she intended. Dr. Park leaned in. "Ballistic signatures. Every rifle leaves unique markings on bullets, and then there's this." He tapped the screen. A casing photographed up close, a tiny ghost etched into the brass. "He wants us to know," Park whispered. Kane stepped forward, his face filling the glow of the screen. "The next target is the Alpine Peace Summit. 12 world leaders, including President, the venue. A glass bubble hanging off the side of a mountain, supposedly sniper-proof, but the ghost doesn't play by the rules." Mitchell's tone hardened. Our advanced team identified 17 potential shooting sites within 4,000 meters of the venue. We'll place counter-sniper teams at each, but none of them can reliably engage past 1,500. Which is where you come in, Kane said. The words landed like a weight across Maya's shoulders. Her hands went clammy. She wanted to laugh, to scream, to remind them she was a bartender, not a savior. Instead, she whispered the thought that had haunted her since Hawthorne. What if that shot was luck? The room fell silent. Kane's expression softened just barely. I've seen soldiers fold under pressure, and I've seen others rise. The difference isn't skill, it's focus. You've already proven you can do what others can't. Now, you decide if you'll do it again. Her throat tightened. A voice from long ago, her grandfather's, echoed in her head. When the world asks more of you than you think you can give, that's when you find out who you really are. Maya looked at the ghost's face on the screen. A man who turned physics into murder. A man who thought distance made him untouchable. Then I need to know him, she said. Her own voice startled her, firm, decisive. Not just his shots, him, his art. Show me the crime scenes, all of them. Mitchell frowned. That's not protocol. Maya didn't flinch. Nothing about this is protocol. Kane's face cracked the faintest smile. Now you're thinking like a hunter. 5 days blurred together. Training that tested every nerve, every muscle. Maya swapped her bartender's clothes for combat gear. Her simple rifle for the XM2010 that hummed with technology. She learned to trust its computer, but also to trust herself more. Still, the doubt lingered. She lay awake at night, staring at ceilings she didn't recognize, wondering if she'd crumble when it mattered. If the ghost was out there somewhere, watching, waiting. On the 6th morning, the helicopter lifted off. Its rotors cut the thin alpine air, carrying her toward jagged peaks that stabbed at the clouds. Below, valleys stretched like green scars across stone. Beautiful, dangerous. Target area 2 minutes out, the pilot's voice crackled. Mitchell leaned across the cabin, pointing to a gleaming structure carved into the mountain. Glass walls, panoramic views, a marvel of architecture, a nightmare of tactics. The resort, she said. 12 world leaders meet here tomorrow morning. Maya raised her binoculars. The conference room jutted like a crystal bubble hanging over nothing but sky, stunning, and completely exposed. Why not move it inside? She asked. Politics, Kane's voice growled over comms. The summit is about transparency. World leaders hiding in bunkers sends the wrong message. Maya lowered the binoculars. The optics of world leaders getting shot might be worse. No one answered. They landed at a staging area 5 kilometers from the resort. Trucks, soldiers, weapons, an entire small war humming beneath the shadow of the summit. All of it, Maya realized, to counter one man with a rifle. Kane gestured to a short woman with intense green eyes. Meet your spotter, Sergeant First Class Lisa, best in the Army. Extended a hand, firm, calloused. Heard about your Nevada shot, impressive. Also heard you've never worked with a spotter. I usually shoot alone, Maya admitted. Not anymore. Out here I'm your eyes and ears. You just focus on the trigger, we clear. Maya nodded, though unease rippled inside her. She didn't feel like she belonged among these professionals. 5 days ago, she'd been serving beer. Now she was supposed to protect presidents. They hiked to their overwatch, a ridge 2,800 meters from the glass resort. Maya set up her rifle, adjusted the spotting scope, eyes scanning. 17 possible positions, muttered. Counter-sniper teams at each, but effective engagement range. 1,500 meters max. Beyond that, it's all you. Maya peered through her scope, breath tight. Every peak, every valley, every shadow felt like it could hide him. The ghost, watching, waiting. Then's voice sharpened. Movement, northwest ridge, 3,200 meters, figure prone behind rocks. Maya swung her rifle, her pulse hammering. Through the shimmer of distance she saw it, a shape, Human or equipment, hard to tell. I see it, she whispered. Then's tone dropped. Muzzle flash, he's not aiming at the resort. Maya's stomach dropped. Then where? At us. The first bullet shattered rock 3 feet from her face. The ghost wasn't waiting for world leaders. He was hunting her. How do you fight someone you can't even see? That question tore through Maya's head as shards of granite rained down, the ghost's first shot tearing a crater into the ridge where she and had been lying. The sound of it wasn't like the movies. No sharp crack, no clean echo. It was a roar, a violent whip of air as the supersonic round clawed past her cheek, close enough to make her ears pop. Maya rolled hard, pressing her back against stone, heart hammering. She tried to steady her breath, but adrenaline surged like lightning in her veins. He's got us zeroed, snapped, already shouting into her radio. Contact, Northwest Ridge, grid 847392, taking effective fire. Another shot screamed past, smashing into the boulder inches from scope. The woman didn't flinch, just cursed under her breath and kept calling it in. Maya forced herself to think. How did he know this wasn't chance? The ghost hadn't stumbled across them. He'd been waiting. He'd known she would be here, known she would take this perch. Her throat tightened. Because of Nevada, because I hit that target, because I dared to prove it was possible. Now the impossible was aiming back at her. Kane, it's him, barked over the radio. The ghost has engaged. He's not aiming at the summit, he's targeting us. The reply came fast, clipped, panicked. All counter-sniper teams converge on Northwest Ridge. Eliminate the threat. Air support inbound for extraction. Maya peered around the rock, scope pressed against her eye. Through the shimmer of distance she thought she saw it. A faint flash, the hint of a muzzle behind stone. But the ghost was too careful, too precise. Nothing of him revealed but smoke and silence. Another round cracked overhead, showering dust across her hair. He wasn't missing. He was toying with her. Maya whispered, he's not here for them, he's here for me. Shot her a glance sharp as a blade. We're not debating that now. We move or we die. Maya shook her head. The realization hit like a gut punch. No, if we move, he herds us. See that eastern ridge. Cover every path we take to flank him. He's baiting us into a kill zone. Froze, her eyes darted to the ridge. The pieces clicked. Then he's not alone. More shots rained down, forcing their heads low. The ghost was orchestrating chaos, driving them, shaping them like pieces on a board. And overhead, Maya heard it, the thunder of rotor blades. Air support inbound, Kane's voice growled. No, Maya shouted, gripping her radio. Abort, it's a trap, multiple shooters covering the airspace. But it was too late. The first helicopter crested the ridge. Maya's eye caught the telltale muzzle flash. She calculated instantly, trajectory, wind, angle. Her mouth opened to scream. The tail rotor exploded. The helicopter spun, screaming metal and sparks before slamming into the valley below. A fireball bloomed against the snow. 6 soldiers, gone. The radio erupted with chaos. Orders, screams, static. Maya's voice was deadly calm. Now do you believe me? Kane's reply was grim, heavy with realization. What do you need? Maya looked through her scope. The ghost had outmaneuvered them, outthought them, turned their strength into a weapon against themselves. But in doing so, he had revealed something. A flaw. I need everyone to stop trying to rescue me, she whispered. He's not here for the summit, he's here for me. He wants to prove he's still the best. His head snapped toward her. You want to duel him at 3,200 meters while he's zeroed on us. Maya's jaw tightened. Yes, because if I run, everyone dies anyway. If I stay, she chambered around, her hands steady despite the storm in her chest. Maybe I buy us a chance. Stared, then nodded once. Then let's make it count. They slid into position. Read the wind, the temperature, the shifting clouds. Her voice was calm, clinical, even as bullets clawed at stone around them. Wind 8 to 12 northwest. Mirage heavy, temp dropping. Maya adjusted, fingers on her turrets, eyes never leaving the glass. She studied the ghost's rhythm. His shots were precise, methodical, every 43 seconds. He wasn't rushing. He didn't need to. He's timing himself, she murmured. Every 43 seconds, he's calculating each one. Which means, asked. It means he doesn't miss. Maya's breathing slowed. Her pulse synced with the rhythm of the shots. Every 43 seconds the rifle barked. The pattern was perfect, unbreakable, unless. She whispered, I need you to break it. His eyes widened. What? Expose yourself. 2 seconds. Draw his fire, force him to rush. That's suicide. It's our only chance. He calculates perfection, we force imperfection. Maya's eyes burned through the scope. Trust me. Cursed under her breath, then she nodded. On your mark. Maya watched the clock. 37 seconds. 38. The world went quiet in her ears. Nothing but the whisper of wind and the thunder of her own heart. Now. Popped up a blur of movement, silhouette framed against rock. The shot cracked like thunder, the bullet tearing past her vest, ripping cloth but missing flesh. Dove back, gasping, adrenaline pouring off her like heat. Jesus. But Maya didn't answer. Her crosshairs were locked. The ghost's muzzle flash had given her everything, his rhythm, his angle, his breath. Send it, whispered. Maya's finger tightened. The rifle kicked. The bullet began its long journey 3/8 seconds through the alpine sky. She held her breath, tracking the invisible arc. Impact. Through her scope she saw the figure jerk, fall still. You nailed him, breathed. Relief poured from her voice, dead on. But Maya didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the rocks, something clawed at her instincts. It was too easy, too theatrical. Radio Kane, she whispered. Now. Hesitated. Why, you hit. Because it's wrong. Maya's voice was cold. The radio crackled. Overwatch 7, confirming target, position compromised, it's a mannequin. Repeat, decoy. Maya's blood froze. And then another muzzle flash. Not from the northwest, from the east. The secondary ridge. The shot screamed toward them, moved before thought. She threw herself across Maya's body. The bullet tore into her shoulder, blood spraying against granite. Collapsed, gasping, teeth clenched against the pain. Maya dragged her back, hands pressing against crimson. Relief flickered shoulder, not chest. Alive for now, but weak. Maya groaned. He's got us, we're done. Maya's eyes locked on the eastern ridge. Her laser rangefinder blinked the number. 3,847 meters. Her breath caught, beyond human capability, beyond the limits of her rifle, beyond reason. But through her scope she saw him, the ghost, moving with confidence, exposing himself more than necessary, believing her beaten, believing her reach ended here. Maya dialed elevation, pushing her scope to its edge. Her hands shook, not with fear but with clarity. He thinks I'll fight like a soldier, she whispered. His eyes met hers, pain swimming in them. What are you then? Maya's jaw clenched. I'm a bartender who understands physics. Her crosshairs found him, the ghost, the legend, the impossible. And she began to breathe. What does a person feel the moment before doing something no human has ever done? Maya didn't know. But as her finger brushed the trigger and her eye locked through glass at a silhouette nearly 4 kilometers away, she was about to find out. Her breath fogged against the cold steel. Her pulse thumped inside her ears. Behind her, groaned, clutching her bloodied shoulder, fighting to stay conscious. You rasped, her voice strained. You can't make that shot. Maya didn't look away from her scope. The numbers scrolled in her mind, wind, drift, bullet drop, effect, flight time. Each one pushed the shot further into absurdity. But she saw something the ghost hadn't hidden well enough, his confidence. The way he exposed more of himself than necessary, his arrogance. Maybe not, she whispered, But he made one mistake. Coughed, her breath shallow. What's that? He thought distance makes him invincible. Her crosshairs wavered across the distant silhouette. The ghost moved with unhurried precision, setting his rifle for what he believed would be the final shot. He wasn't rushing. Why would he? He thought physics was his ally alone. Maya forced her breath to slow. Her grandfather's words rose like ghosts of their own. Steady. The rifle doesn't fire itself. It waits for you to believe. Through the scope, she tracked the wind. 15 miles per hour, shifting northwest to west. Temperature dropping as clouds slid across the sun. Mirage dancing over the rocks. She dialed elevation until her scope reached its mechanical limits, then calculated beyond them in her head, holding the rest in memory. Groaned again, fighting to prop the spotting scope with her one good arm. Wind's pushing harder. Mirage is breaking. Maya, this isn't shooting anymore. This is gambling. Sometimes, Maya said softly, gambling's just physics you can't quite see yet. She pressed her cheek harder against the stock. Her world shrank to crosshairs and breath. Range confirmed, whispered, voice trembling but steady with duty. 3847 meters. Maya exhaled, a whisper of air, a prayer. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked. The bullet leapt free, beginning its impossible journey. For 4 full seconds, Maya's lungs froze. She imagined the round, arcing upward, vanishing against sky, curving back down with gravity's pull. Each gust of wind, each fraction of rotation mattered more than her belief. The impact came like thunder rolling across stone, a faint, distant crack. Through her scope, she saw the ghost stumble. His rifle clattered from his hands. His body collapsed against the rocks. His breath caught. Holy Maya, you hit him. Maya didn't celebrate. Her instincts screamed. It was too neat, too clean. She studied him enough to know the ghost never gave anything away for free. Radio Kane, she said coldly. Confirm it. Fumbled with her comms, voice breaking. Overwatch, confirm ghost down. The reply crackled back. Position compromised. Target appears neutralized. Repeat, neutralized. But Maya didn't move her scope. She kept her crosshairs fixed, jaw tight. And then, like a blade between her ribs, she saw it, movement. Not him, not flesh. A mannequin. A decoy rigged to fall convincingly. Her blood ran cold. The real muzzle flash came from the eastern ridge. The ghost had drawn her out, forced her to fire at shadows, positioned himself for the kill. She shouted, throwing herself sideways. The bullet came, a sonic crack that split the air, cried out, spinning, blood blooming fresh across her shoulder. Maya dragged her behind cover, pressing hard against the wound. Stay with me. Gritted her teeth, pale with shock. He's got us zeroed. Maya's eyes burned through the scope toward the eastern ridge. Her rangefinder blinked again. 3,847 meters. The ghost stood there, now fully visible, calm, methodical. He adjusted his rifle like a man preparing a meal. No hurry, no fear. Groaned, that's beyond human. Maya, even you can't. Maya's jaw tightened. Then I'll be something more. She forced her breathing calm. Physics screamed the shot was madness. Bullet drop of nearly 50 feet, flight time over 4 seconds, wind drift that could shove the round off by yards. But arrogance was the ghost's weakness. He thought her broken. He thought this was over. Spot for me, Maya whispered. His face was ashen. Maya, I'm half conscious, I can barely. You don't need to be perfect, Maya said gently. Just honest. Tears welled in his eyes, not from pain, but from fear of letting her down. She gritted her teeth and angled the spotting scope with her good arm. Wind 15. Gusting. Temp dropping. Mirage unstable. Maya nodded. The variables spun in her head, colliding, aligning, rearranging. Equations and instincts wove together. She whispered to herself, the way her grandfather once had when teaching her to shoot tin cans from fence posts. Gravity's not the enemy. Wind's not the enemy. The only enemy is doubt. Through her scope she saw him, the ghost, a silhouette against granite, calm, almost smug. He adjusted his rifle toward her, confident she was already finished. Maya closed her eyes for half a second, inhaled, exhaled, opened them again. "Send it," whispered. Her finger pressed the trigger, the rifle roared. The bullet launched into the impossible. For 4.1 seconds, Maya's entire existence condensed into one question. Had she calculated enough? She tracked the arc through her scope, praying, calculating, believing. The distant crack echoed. The ghost jerked. His rifle tumbled from his grip. His body collapsed into stone. Gasped, "Maya, that was impossible." But Maya didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She chambered another round, her eyes scanning, instincts thrumming with unease. "Call Kane," she ordered. "Tell him it's not over, sweep the resort. His team is already inside." Blinked through pain. How do you know?" Maya's jaw clenched. Because this was never about distance. Distance was just the show. His real plan is closer, much closer. 20 minutes later, alarms blared across the summit. Swiss Special Forces dragged 3 men from the resort kitchens, their disguises crisp uniforms of maintenance staff, hidden pistols, explosives sewn into tool bags. And on the ridge, Maya lowered her rifle, staring at the place where the ghost's body lay. A man who had lived by making the impossible possible, stopped by a bartender who refused to believe she couldn't. Her voice, quiet, steady, drifted like smoke against the mountain air. "Sometimes dignity doesn't shout, it doesn't brag, it just acts." Why wasn't it over? That question haunted Maya as the helicopter blades whipped the alpine snow into a storm around her. Hours had passed since the impossible shot, hours since the ghost's body tumbled behind granite. And yet, as she sat inside the aircraft, rifle across her knees, blood from shoulder soaking through bandages at her side, something in her chest refused to unclench. The summit was alive. World leaders had walked away unharmed, shielded by chaos they barely understood. 3 infiltrators had been dragged out in cuffs, their plan dissolved before the first handshake of diplomacy could be made. On the surface, victory. But the ghost's shadow lingered. Maya closed her eyes, hearing again the crack of her rifle, the impossible arc of that final bullet. The Way's voice broke when she said, "That was impossible." It hadn't felt like triumph. It had felt hollow. Because if she was honest, she didn't know how she'd done it. "You're shaking," murmured beside her, voice weak but steady. Her face was pale, lips pressed tight against pain. "You saved them all, don't cheapen it." Maya looked down at her hands. They trembled against the rifle, not from adrenaline, from something deeper. Fear, maybe, or recognition. "He was too good," Maya whispered, "too careful, and yet he exposed himself. He let me take that shot." Winced as the helicopter jostled in turbulence. "You think it was a trick?" "I think," Maya said slowly, "he wanted me to prove I could. That was the test, not the kill. The kill was a bonus." Didn't reply. Her eyes fluttered, exhaustion finally pulling her under. Maya adjusted the sling, holding her upright, silent, her own thoughts louder than the roar of the rotors. When they landed at the staging base, Kane was waiting. His face was unreadable, but his nod carried something heavier than orders. Respect, or maybe resignation. "You did it," he said simply. Maya stepped off the ramp, boots sinking into gravel, shoulders stiff with unspoken weight. "Did I?" Kane's eyes narrowed. 12 leaders are alive because of you. Don't second-guess reality." But Maya did. She couldn't stop. Because beneath the relief and the praise, one thought gnawed at her. What if it wasn't over? Inside the command tent, chaos reigned. Officers moved like a hive, voices sharp, maps scattered with pins and markers. Screens replayed feeds of the resort, the arrests, the crash site where the ghost had supposedly fallen. Colonel Mitchell approached, her tone brisk, eyes cold. 3 infiltrators confirmed. all carrying false credentials, all linked to the Ghost's network. Without your warning, they'd have had clear access to the conference room. The summit would end it in blood. Maya nodded numbly. What about him? Mitchell hesitated. We'll confirm DNA once the body is recovered. Maya's chest tightened. Once, not if not already confirmed, once. She pictured the silhouette against granite, the arrogance, the fall, and she wondered, had she truly killed a man or had she killed the idea of him? Later, in the quiet of a makeshift barracks, Maya sat alone, rifle across her lap. The tent smelled of diesel and sweat. Soldiers laughed outside, celebrating, their voices muffled through canvas. She couldn't join them. Her hands traced the steel of the weapon, the tool that had brought her here. It didn't feel like hers anymore. It felt heavier, weighted with something invisible. She thought of her grandfather, the man who'd taught her that shooting was patience, not violence, that it was about breath, not death. He told her once, after a long day of hunting rabbits they never shot, sometimes the power is in choosing not to pull the trigger. But today she had, and at nearly 4 kilometers, her choice had rewritten the rules of war. The flap of the tent shifted. General Kane stepped in, his boots silent despite his size. He carried no folder, no tablet, no orders, just himself. "You should be proud," he said quietly. Maya looked up at him, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "I don't feel proud, I feel used." Kane studied her, his features softer in the dim light. "That's the truth they don't print in medals. The cost isn't just blood, it's what lingers after." She set the rifle down, leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Tell me something, General. Why me? Really? Why drag a bartender out of Reno when you've got entire divisions of trained snipers?" Kane sat across from her, his silence long enough to feel like judgment. Then he spoke, voice low, weighted. "Because you don't think like a soldier. Soldiers follow doctrine. Doctrine says shots past 2 kilometers are fantasy. Doctrine says what you did in Nevada wasn't possible. The Ghost breaks doctrine. To fight him, we needed someone who didn't believe in it either." Maya's eyes stung, not with pride, with something closer to grief. "So you chose me because I don't belong." Kane nodded once. "Exactly." She laughed, but it was hollow. "That's not comforting." "It's not meant to be." He stood, adjusting his jacket. "Rest, debrief at 0700. After that, you'll have a choice to make." Maya frowned. "A choice?" Kane paused at the flap. "Stay a bartender, or become something else, something this world doesn't even have a name for yet." Then he was gone, leaving her alone with the hum of distant generators and the weight of her own heartbeat. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it was filled with visions of scopes and crosshairs, of bullets tracing arcs across skis, of faceless men falling against stone. She woke before dawn, breath ragged, hands searching for a rifle that wasn't supposed to define her. At the debrief, Mitchell's tone was clipped, clinical. She laid out timelines, diagrams, failures, the crash of the helicopter, the infiltrators, the unknowns, always the unknowns. And when she reached the slide of the Ghost's supposed body, Maya's chest tightened. The photo was grainy, distant, a shape slumped behind rock, no face visible. "DNA results pending," Mitchell said. Maya spoke before she realized her voice had cut the room. "That's not him." Every head turned. Silence crackled like static. Kane's brow furrowed. "What makes you say that?" Maya swallowed. "Because he wanted me to see him. He wanted me to take that shot. And the Ghost doesn't give anyone what they want, not unless it serves him." The room stayed silent, but in the corner of her eye, she saw doubt flicker even in Mitchell's steel gaze. After the meeting, Maya stepped outside into the thin alpine air. The peaks loomed above, snow glowing under the morning sun. Soldiers moved around her, voices full of relief and pride. She felt none of it. Instead, she stared at the horizon, at the mountains that stretched into forever. Because somewhere out there, she felt it, The ghost wasn't done, not yet. And neither was she. Why did the bar feel different? That was the first thing Maya noticed when she pushed through the swinging doors of Rusty's 3 weeks later. Same neon beer signs buzzing faintly. Same cracked leather stools worn smooth by truckers. Same smell of old wood, whiskey, and smoke embedded in the walls. But to her it all felt smaller. She dropped her duffel by the counter, tied her apron around her waist, and forced a smile at the familiar faces. The regulars cheered when they saw her. A few clapped her shoulder. Someone made a joke about her disappearing on a secret bender. Maya laughed with them, but her laugh didn't sound like her own. She poured drinks. She wiped glasses. She listened to football debates that rose and fell like the tide. On the surface, it was as though nothing had changed. And yet everything had. Every time the door opened, her pulse jumped. Every shadow at the far end of the bar made her shoulders stiffen. She caught herself mapping through the windows, calculating angles, thinking about fields of fire. She hated it. More than once, she nearly told herself to stop, to just be, to slip back into the rhythm of laughter and jukebox music and spilled beer. But the ghost had carved himself into her mind. The impossible duel in the Alps wasn't a memory. It was an unfinished equation still scratching at her skull. At night, she lay awake in her trailer, staring at the ceiling. She heard the alpine winds in her dreams, the crack of her rifle echoing in empty canyons. Sometimes she saw him fall again. Sometimes he didn't. The world called her a hero. Kane had told her so in blunt words before she left Site 7. You're in the history books now, whether you like it or not. But history didn't pour whiskey at 2 a.m. It didn't pay rent. It didn't heal the unease that lived in her bones. She wanted to believe it was over. She wanted to believe the ghost was dead, but her instincts wouldn't let her. If he was truly gone, she thought as she locked the bar one night, why does it still feel like he's watching me? The phone rang at midnight. Maya froze, staring at the old landline mounted behind the bar. Nobody called that number anymore, not unless they knew it. She picked up slowly. Rusty's. A pause, a man's voice, low, steady, accented. You see why I chose you now. Her throat tightened. The voice was unfamiliar, yet the weight behind it was undeniable, calm, confident. You're supposed to be dead, she whispered. A faint laugh, not mocking, not cruel, just assured. Death is an illusion, you should know that by now. They told you I was reckless. They told you I was arrogant, but I was testing you, Maya, and you passed. Her pulse hammered. Who is this? You already know. The line went dead. She stood in silence, the receiver heavy in her hand. She could hear her own breath, her own blood. It couldn't be him, and yet her gut told her the truth before her mind could fight it. The ghost wasn't finished. The next days blurred. She worked the bar, but her thoughts lived elsewhere. Every face in the crowd became a suspect. Every unfamiliar car parked across the street lingered in her mind long after it was gone. Tommy dropped by one afternoon, leaning across the counter with his usual grin. You look like hell, Maya. Thought you'd be basking in your 15 minutes. Instead, you look like you've seen a ghost. The word made her flinch. Tommy's grin faded. Hey, I was kidding, you okay? Maya forced a nod, just tired. But she was. She was alert in a way that felt like exhaustion. Her body burned with constant vigilance. Her mind replayed the voice on the phone over and over. You passed. That night, she drove to the range. Alone. Desert wind whipped across the sand as she set up her rifle under the pale wash of the moon. She fired, again and again, at bottles, at steel plates, at targets set further than the range was meant for. She calculated wind shifts in the dark. She practiced breathing cycles until her chest ached. But no matter how many times the steel rang, she didn't feel closer to peace, only further from it. The ghost was alive, somewhere, watching, waiting. And the worst part, the part she couldn't admit even to herself, Was that part of her needed him to be? Because if he was dead, then what was she? Just a bartender who'd gotten lucky once. If he lived, then her purpose lived too. A week later, General Kane walked into Rusty's. Not in uniform, not with escorts. Just a man in a worn jacket, scars deepened by the neon light. Maya froze behind the counter. "You can't be here." Kane slid onto a stool, his gaze heavy. "Phone call." Her jaw clenched. "You know about it." He nodded. "Intercepted fragments, couldn't trace, but I know the voice shook you." She poured him a whiskey without asking. "You told me he was dead." "I told you we had a body. That's different." "Don't play games with me." Her voice cracked. "If he's alive, then none of it mattered. The shot, the summit, bleeding out beside me, it was just theater." Kane took a sip, watching her. "Maybe, or maybe it mattered more than you realize. He chose you, doesn't mean you wanted it, doesn't mean you asked for it, but it's real. And now you have a decision to make." She laughed bitterly. "Another choice, huh? Stay a bartender or become something else. You keep dangling that in front of me like it's not a curse." Kane leaned closer. "Because it is a curse, but some curses are the only thing keeping the rest of us alive." Maya's throat tightened. The bar felt suddenly too small, too fragile. Her old life crumbling under the weight of a world she hadn't chosen but could no longer walk away from. "Why me?" she asked again, softer this time. Kane set the glass down, his eyes never leaving hers. "Because you're the only one he sees as worthy, and if the ghost isn't finished, then neither are you." He stood, leaving the whiskey half drunk. At the door he turned back. "When he calls again, you let me know, understand?" She nodded, but when the door swung shut, she knew the truth. She wouldn't. Because deep down, some part of her didn't want Kane or Mitchell or anyone else standing between her and the ghost. This wasn't about armies or politics anymore. It was about two people, two rifles, and a question only they could answer. Who would walk away last? Why didn't he just kill her? That was the thought Maya couldn't escape as she locked Rusty's one night, the neon lights flickering out behind her. If the ghost truly wanted her gone, he'd had every chance. A bullet through her trailer window, a shot while she crossed the parking lot, a round cutting her down in the desert. But he hadn't. Instead he called, a whisper in the dark, a voice threading itself into her sleep, into her breath, into her thoughts. She lit a cigarette she didn't even want, standing under the buzzing. Smoke curled in the cold Nevada air. Across the empty lot, a sedan idled longer than it should have before pulling away. She froze, eyes narrowing, mind already calculating angle, distance, bullet drop, until the car turned the corner and vanished. She laughed bitterly, not at the car, not at herself, but at the truth. He was inside her head now. The next morning, an envelope slid under the bar's front door. No stamp, no return address, just her name in block letters. Her hand shook as she opened it. Inside, a single spent casing, a ghost etched into the brass. Her breath hitched. Below it, one line handwritten in black ink. "Physics doesn't lie, neither do you." She folded the paper slowly, methodically, as if her calmness might keep her sanity from cracking. Then she locked it in the drawer beneath the till, where whiskey tabs and old receipts lived. She didn't tell Kane, didn't tell who was recovering states away. She didn't tell Tommy or any of the regulars. She told no one. Because this wasn't for them, it was for her. That night she dreamed of him again, but not as a silhouette behind glass. This time he sat at her bar, pale eyes steady, sipping whiskey as though nothing separated them but wood and silence. "You understand me now," he said in the dream. "More than the generals, more than the soldiers. They chase doctrine, we chase truth." She woke with her pulse hammering, drenched in sweat. The next week was worse. Subtle things, small things, each one worming deeper into her bones. A chalk outline of a bullet arc drawn across the hood of her car. A target stapled to the back fence of her trailer, 3 holes punched dead center. Her grandfather's photo, which always hung above the bar, missing one morning. It returned the next night, perfectly placed, untouched, but somehow heavier. The ghost wasn't trying to kill her, he was dismantling her, piece by piece. And she hated how much part of her admired it, the patience, the artistry, the restraint. One night, as she poured a drink for a trucker arguing about football, she caught herself glancing at the clock, counting seconds, subconsciously timing cycles of 43. Like him. She set the glass down too hard, liquid spilling over the edge. The trucker cursed, but she barely heard him. Her mind was trapped in the rhythm. He's pulling me into his world, she thought, and I'm letting him. The phone rang again 3 nights later. Same midnight hour, same heavy silence before the voice. You felt it, didn't you? Her throat tightened. Felt what? That itch in your bones, that rhythm in your blood. You can't pour drinks anymore without thinking of angles. You can't walk down a street without measuring distance. You're not who you were, you never will be again. Maya gripped the receiver until her knuckles whitened. What do you want from me? The pause was deliberate, long enough for her own heartbeat to answer. Respect, he said finally, and when it's time, acknowledgement that you and I are the same. She slammed the phone down. Her reflection stared back from the bar's glass front door, eyes hollow, jaw clenched, not the bartender her regulars knew, not the woman her grandfather raised. Someone else, someone the ghost had shaped. The next day Kane called. His voice was clipped, urgent. Another kill, Munich. NATO scientist, distance, 3250, signature casing left behind. Maya's stomach dropped. So it is him. Kane hesitated. If you've heard from him. She cut him off. I haven't. It wasn't entirely a lie. She hadn't heard from him, she felt him. Kane's voice hardened. We're opening a new task force. International. If he's escalating, we'll need you. Think about it. But Maya didn't need to think. She already knew. That night she drove into the desert, set up her rifle, and stared at the horizon long after her ammo was gone. She wasn't training. She wasn't practicing. She was waiting. Because every piece of her told her the same truth. This wasn't about politics anymore. Not about presidents or summits. It was about her and him. And sooner or later, one of them would stop breathing. What if this was the last sunrise she'd ever see? That thought struck Maya as she crouched among the boulders of a canyon 2 hours east of Reno. The air was cold, sharp with desert wind. The horizon burned pink against jagged stone. Her rifle lay steady across her pack, scope glinting faintly in the dawn. The ghost had chosen the place. Of course he had. A message slipped under her bar door the night before, written in that same blocky hand. No threats, no riddles, just coordinates. And one sentence, one last shot, between us. She hadn't told Kane. Hadn't told anyone. This wasn't theirs, it was hers. Now she lay in silence, heart steady but heavy, eyes scanning the. Every rock could hide him. Every shadow could breathe. The radio clipped to her vest, left on only because instinct wouldn't let her come without it, crackled suddenly. A voice, low, calm, certain. You came. Maya exhaled slowly. You left me no choice. You always had a choice, the ghost replied, and you chose truth. She swept her scope across the canyon. Nothing, only shifting light and wind. Where are you? Closer than you think. Her pulse spiked, but she didn't let it reach her voice. Why me? Why not end it months ago? Why taunt me instead of pulling the trigger? A pause. She imagined him smiling faintly, unseen. Because death is easy, understanding is harder, and you understand. Her throat tightened. I'm nothing like you. You are exactly like me, he said. Physics made us kin, pressure, distance, precision. The world will remember you for your shot in the Alps, but that was just the beginning. Today they will remember which of us walks away. Static filled the silence. Then faintly, through her scope, movement. Far across the canyon, half hidden in the glow of sunrise, she saw it, the faint shimmer of glass, a scope catching the light. Her breath stilled. He was there, waiting. Maya adjusted her rifle, hands steady despite the storm inside her chest. She felt the old rhythm rise again. Breath in, breath out, count the wind, count the silence. Her grandfather's voice whispered in memory. Sometimes, the power is in choosing not to pull the trigger. But here, choice meant survival. Wind 12, she whispered, her voice to no one but herself. Range 3498, mirage light. She dialed elevation, felt her cheek sink against the stock. Through her scope she saw him, clearer now. A lean silhouette, rifle resting, body calm, his face hidden by distance but unmistakable in presence. For a heartbeat neither moved, two predators across a void bound by physics and fate. Maya exhaled, settled into her pause. And then she hesitated. Because for the first time she saw it. Not a monster, not a legend, just a man, flesh and bone, someone who had built himself from precision the way she had, someone who had lived too long in the crosshairs, who no longer knew how to be anything else. And in that moment she felt something break inside her, not fear, not hate, something closer to pity. The ghost moved first, a flash, the crack of his rifle. Her body reacted before thought, trigger squeezed, rifle roared. The two shots echoed as one, rolling through the canyon like thunder. Her shoulder slammed back against rock. She gasped, feeling stone fragments cut into her cheek. Through her scope she saw him stagger. He stumbled, rifle clattering against stone, hand pressed against his chest. He dropped to his knees, pale eyes staring across the canyon. Not at her rifle, at her. For a long, breathless moment, they simply looked at each other across nearly 3.5 kilometers of open air. Then he fell. Maya's body shook, not from recoil, not from fear, from the silence that followed. She lowered her rifle slowly, her breath ragged, her chest hollow. The canyon seemed to hold its own breath, as though the desert itself understood what had just ended. The radio crackled, Kane's voice hard and urgent. We tracked you. Coordinates match a signal. Report. Do you copy? Her hand hovered over the button. She wanted to answer, to tell him it was done, that the ghost was gone. But she didn't. Instead, she switched the radio off. She sat in silence, watching the sun rise higher, burning the canyon gold. Hours later, when she finally walked away, she left the rifle behind, resting it on the boulder where she'd lain. Let them study it. Let them argue about the shot. Let them chase physics and records and doctrine. For her, the duel was never about distance. It was about understanding. Back at Rusty, weeks later, she poured drinks again. The regulars argued about football. The jukebox played the same tired songs. On the surface, nothing had changed. But inside, everything had. Sometimes, in the quiet hours after closing, she thought of his pale eyes across the canyon, not as an enemy, not even as a killer, but as a mirror. Because he had been right about one thing, she could never go back to who she was. She wasn't a bartender anymore, not a soldier either. She was something in between, something nameless. And maybe that was enough. Her grandfather's words echoed one last time, soft as breath. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It doesn't boast, it simply acts. Maya smiled faintly, wiping down the bar as the neon lights buzzed overhead. And when the phone rang at midnight, she didn't answer.